Well, yeah, got 2 sets of minutes, so if we get it wrong on one, we can always go to the other one, can't we, Fran? Because they've got, I don't know which one we're using. But okay, welcome everybody to this afternoon's Cabinet meeting. And I'll start first with apologies for absence. I know we've got Jenny, and that's it, isn't it? Yeah, so Councillor Hollingsworth is out. And declarations of interest at 2. Are there any declared? Non-declared? Thank you. And we're just to approve the meeting which is held on the 22nd of the 5th, 2025, and that's on pages 5 to 7. So I'll move that, although I wasn't here. Probably it's better if it comes from... Oh, sorry, so get a bit nearer. That's it. Yeah. Okay. We're all okay on that? Yeah, we're agreed. Thank you. So the next item, which is a forward plan, we're just asked to note that. So I'll move that we note it from the chair. We're okay? Yeah. That's fine. Thank you. And item 5, which is Tina, Annual Treasury Activity Report 24-25. She's right down on the left wing there today.
Thank you, Leader. Luke, I might just need a bit of help with this, please, if you don't mind. So we're going to start today with the Annual Treasury Activity Report. Can't believe it's a year since I was last here doing outturn. It seems to have gone by a flash. The Treasury management, so basically it's just about how we manage our investments and borrowing. It's heavily regulated, as you know, and the regulations require that we bring to you an annual Treasury management strategy, which was approved by Council in March 2024, a mid-year Treasury management update, a mid-year review, which was taken to Cabinet in January 25, and an annual review, which compares the activity in 1 year, in the year to the strategy. And that's what we're going to go through today. So we'll start off with a bit of an update on the economic climate. So interest rates during the year started in April 2024 at 5.25%. We have had some reductions and they reached 4.5% by December 2024. And we had a further reduction last month in May, and currently rates are sitting at 4.25%. The forecast reductions going forward are that they reach 3.75% by autumn 2025. So significant forecasts of rate reductions that were predicted in 24-25 didn't actually happen because inflation rates remained quite elevated throughout the year. The forecasts were just too optimistic in the market in relation to reductions in rates. But from November 24, the outlook was more realistic. The Bank of England's ambition is to have a 2% rate in 2 to 3 years. And as I've just said, that forecast for autumn 2025 is at 3.75%. So CPI rose by 3.5% in the past 12 months, up to April 2025. And that's actually up from 2.6% from the previous 12 months. So early this year, markets have been quite influenced by President Trump's trade tariffs policy. There's a growing suggestion of risks of a US recession. However, UK GDP is protected somewhat by the Office of Responsibility, so GDP growth is forecast to remain static at around 1% in 25-26. And the money markets provided pretty good rates of return in excess of 5% throughout the year. So that was all good news. So our overall Treasury position for the Council is that we have a capital financing requirement of 16.8 £3 million. So the capital financing requirement is basically our need to borrow to support the capital programmes. We can't borrow for revenue, only for capital. Our actual borrowing, so our external debt, is sitting at £10.8 million. There's no change from previous years. We haven't borrowed or taken out any more loans during 24-25. So the difference between those is what we call our under or over borrowing position. And currently we are on an under borrowing position, which is a better position than over, because what it means that we've used other available funds to fund the investments in the capital programme. Borrowing and investments are shown in the pack in Appendix 1 on page 33 of your pack. So in terms of investments, so we manage our investments through our and our daily cash flows on a daily basis. We identify funds for short-term investments, and what we like to do is make sure that those investments are quite short-term and quite liquid, so we can get that money back quite quickly, because we might need it for things like salaries and to pay out precepts. So we do tend to have short-term investments. When we look at our investments, the security is always first. That's our utmost priority. Second to that is liquidity, so how fast we can turn those investments back into cash. And yield is important to us because that's the return on our investment. But we have a policy of making sure security and liquidity is our priority over yield. That kind of like comes third. So the money market funds that we use, most of them are AAA rated, which means that they are a lower risk. And over the course of the year, we have an equated rate of return received in 24-25 of 5.26%. So that's an average investment return on our investment. So in year, we've had total investments of 11.9 million. Now, that has actually gone down quite a lot from this time last financial year. We had about 15 million last year. That goes to show that we are using our funds to support the capital programme. We have had quite a bit of money go out of the door over the past year. So we do need to keep our eye on that because we may need to take out some further borrowing in the future to support our capital programme, because as I've just said, we've got a capital financing requirement which is low. So our borrowing is lower than our need to borrow because we haven't borrowed yet. So at some point we will need to borrow some money to support the capital programme, and we just need to keep our eye on when that time is. And what we'll need to be doing is weighing up kind of like, what's our best option? Do we continue to use the money that we've got sat in the bank or in investments, or do we use that to support our capital programme? And we have to weigh up what we're likely to get in terms of our return on investment and or what we would have to pay the costs of borrowing. So through our treasury management activity, we'll be doing that over the next 12 months. So the net investment position is 8.94 million. So that's the difference between the total investments in the year and the external debt of 10 million that we've just talked about. You'll recall that we have £1 million invested in our CCLA property fund. So this is a long-term investment that we've had for a number of years now. It is expected to fluctuate over time. In recent years, you will recall that investment has actually gone down, and that's as a result of COVID. I'm delighted to tell you that it has started to go back up. It's in 24-25, the value at the end of the year was 8.94 million, which is an increase of 17% from 23-24. So that's really good and really, really positive that it is starting to go up. I mean, property does tend to appreciate and not depreciate, so we do expect that investment to continue to grow and perform well for us, and we do take advice on that. So I'm glad we held our nerve when it was going down and stuck with it. On top of that, we do also get dividends from that property fund, and our dividends this financial year equated to £44,000, and that's an average rate of 4.42%, so not a bad return on that investment. Overall, so those investments, that 11.6 million that we invested in the year, and the dividend interest has actually given us investment interest of just over £1 million this year. So really, really positive. That's really helped us with our financial position. It's a little bit short of what we predicted, not much. but by about £40,000, something like that. And that's mainly just because interest rates have decreased a little bit, but also we are waiting for some capital receipts to come in. So next year we do expect that to go back up, and probably above the £1 million mark. So that will be really good. So in terms of our prudential indicators, so these look at our affordability and prudence. They're set each year by the members, and they set the limits for our borrowing activity. So we have operational and borrowing limits, which ensures that we can meet our liabilities for interest and principal payments of the loans that we have taken out. So Appendix 2 sets out the prudential indicators, and there's also a number of ratios in Appendix 2, and these are all explained in paragraph 2.92 in the report on page 26. It basically shows that borrowing is lower than the set limits due to deferrals of capital programme projects, which also reduces the ratio of financing costs to revenue streams. It's jargon-based and a little bit technical, but if you want to have a look at it, it is there for you to see. But what's really important for you to know is that we are operating under the set boundaries and limits that you set at the beginning of the year when we had the strategy agreed. So the Treasury and prudential indicators are set out in Appendix 2, and that's page 35 of your packs. That's all I have to say on Treasury Management. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tina. Questions?
Only it's great to see £1 million profit. That's excellent. No, but thank you very much. I mean, it always looks so complicated when you start looking at that, but you always make it very, very simple to understand in a way. So thanks for that. And it looks as if we're doing very well. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay, I'll move the recommendation, which is on page 19. Members approve the annual Treasury Activity Report for 24-25 and move that. Seconded. Agreed. Okay. Still moving on with you, Tina. I'll move on to the next one, which is, where are we? Budget outturn. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So this is a really interesting one. This is what we're all here for, really, isn't it? So I'm really, really pleased to bring this report to you this year, because every year when we set our budget, we always say that it's going to be a difficult year, and it will be a struggle to remain within budget because we have a lot of emerging pressures that we know about. So if we have a look at our outturn position this year, for 24-25, the year just ended, we had an approved net portfolio budget of 14.938 million, and our actual position at the end of the year is exactly 14.938 million. So we are predicting a zero underspend. So I'm absolutely delighted to tell you that we have managed to come in on budget. We do have some financing variations of about £209,000. And the net transfer to the general fund will be a contribution to the general fund of £225,000. The finance variance is basically an accounting variance relating to business rates, net of collection fund surpluses. So that is a contribution to the general reserve, and that does kind of like fluctuate from one year to the next. So that's why we always like to make sure that we do have enough in the general fund to deal with those surpluses and deficits that occur as part of the collection fund. On top of that, we've also managed to continue to support vulnerable residents to the tune of £97,000 this year for care leavers and hardship relief. So that's really good news. In terms of the general reserve balance, we started off the beginning of the year thinking that we would have a contribution to general fund of £16,000. As I've just said, that contribution will be £225,000. So an additional £209,000 gone into the general fund this year. So the general fund balances, so we brought forward an opening balance on the 1st of April of 4.913 million. That contribution of 225 will go in once we've finished all the final accounting entries, giving us a carried forward balance at March the 31st, 2025 of 5.138 million. So you'll recall that we have a required minimum balance, which is either £1 million or 7.5% of our net revenue budget, whichever is greater. So required balance is 1.1 million, and we've got 5.138 million. So it's really good news that we haven't had to take a lot of money out of the general fund this year, because as we know, we've got some mounting pressures and inefficiencies that we have to deliver over the medium term in the next 5 years. So it's really good that we've managed to come in on budget. Now, so whilst we have come in on budget, there has been some significant variances that we have managed to finance and sort out. So we will just kind of like go through some of those. So they are all set out in Appendix 1, which starts on, and also they're detailed on page 61 of your pack. So there is some significant increases in external audit fees, combination of factors, including revised accounting standards, backlog of audits and inflationary pressures. Also a shortage of auditors in the market, and I'm sure you're all aware of what's been happening in the audit markets. It's about £272,000 that we have an increase in costs. These are still estimates at this point, because we do have because we have a number of audits that were outstanding at the beginning of last financial year. All of those audit fees haven't been paid yet, and they're still being worked down by the auditors. So some of those are likely to come down. We don't think we'll realise that whole 272,000. So they are funded by earmark reserves, which is why we've still been able to come in on budget. We also had some overspend on agency fees in the Environment Department. And if you remember, this kind of like relates to some work that we did last year on zero-based budgeting, particularly in the Waste Department, which determined that actually we've had massive growth in housing over the number of years, and we just didn't have sufficient staff and capacity to deliver, to go out and deliver that service effectively. And we was reliant on agency workers. A lot of work happened in the year. We have recruited to those posts now, so those overspends kind of like are related to that piece of work, and going forward we hope that they will reduce down. So we also have some one-off costs, staffing costs, as part of restructures that we've carried out throughout the year. And also there was some in-year decrease in development control fees, about £70,000. And basically that's just because there were some major planning apps that haven't come in. So again, we funded that by reserves. We hope those planning applications will come in current financial year. And once they do, we will replenish that reserve, that planning reserve. So it just gives us a bit of a buffer there, because there is some variation from one year to next on those planning applications. So those overspends have been offset by some contributions from earmark reserves, which I've just talked about, and also additional leisure centre income mainly from swimming lessons. So they've had a really good year again this year in leisure, and some savings on staffing in leisure. Also, we've had an increase in garden waste customers that we hadn't budgeted for, so that's also helped offset some of those deficits in the agency fees as well. There's an underspend on fuel, which I'm sure you will all be really pleased with, because the HVO prices, not process, has actually decreased. So that's really good news. And we've had some lower utility bills in leisure centres because we've renegotiated and entered into new contracts. So all positive, really. So although we have had some overspends, we have managed to offset them with underspends and some use of reserves. So some of those actions going forward, so because we have had some overspends, we obviously want to make sure that they don't happen again going forward. So during 2025, we set up the Budget and Performance Board as part of Making Meetings Matter. This will ensure that there is greater budget scrutiny and ownership at a service level of those budgets, and it also will help to align budgets with performance. The zero-based budgeting exercise that we carried out in waste, we want to roll that over to other areas of environment, so to PASCs and street care. And this will ensure that budgets are correct, and that they will actually reflect real service delivery, and that we can also understand the cost of those services, what they cost to deliver. A big part of that is the implementation of the white space system, which is the waste and parks and street care system. And what that will do is provide us with accurate data data, which will be really useful in those budgeting exercises, so that we really know and can understand what needs to happen in those areas. We've also got our digital data technology transformation, which will deliver more efficient and effective services. And we will be reviewing service areas on a continuous basis to ensure that we consider alternative options for service delivery, and always looking for further efficiencies. So if we go to our earmarked reserves balance, now your pack might be a little bit different because we did have a late adjustment come in reserves, and so we have updated the published version, but there's a bit of a difference of about £36,000. So if you do spot that, don't worry. It's not really material. It doesn't have an impact on outturn. It's just that some of the figures might be a little bit different in your packs. So basically, earmarked reserves, we've had a net contribution from reserves. We budgeted that we would be drawing down about £1.1 million from reserves, but we've actually only drawn down £10,000. Now, you've just heard me say that we've funded quite a lot of overspends with reserves, but we've also put quite a lot of money back into reserves. So that's why, we've only drawn down a net figure of about £10,000. So the earmarked reserves balance at the beginning of the financial year, it was 8.6 million. It's still now just sitting at 8.59 million, so just short. It's just that £10,000 difference. It doesn't mean that there's £8 million sitting there for you to go and spend, so please don't get excited. The majority of that is earmarked for specific schemes, and a lot of that is grant funding that is earmarked. We've had some new contributions to reserves, so on the right-hand side of that slide, you'll see some of the amounts that we've actually put into reserves. So we've had 1.4 million that have gone into our leisure strategy that will help to support the leisure transformation that is currently out for consultation, that you're all aware of. We've had some money, the annual contribution from the NNDR pool of 9.67 million, which has gone into reserves. That's a little bit higher this year because we've had something called the volatility fund returned to us as well. We've had some DEFRA waste grant of 234,000, which will support the waste legislative changes that we need to implement over the next couple of years. And we've had some Section 106 grant going into the earmarked reserve as well. We've also had some reduced contributions from reserves of just over £500,000, which means that we've got some programmes and projects running where they may have slipped slightly, so we haven't had to draw us down as much as what we thought we might need to. And some increased contributions to reserves, just a small amount there, 44,000. And then the additional contributions from reserves of just over £1 million, and that includes all those things to support the overspends that we've talked about. So the detail of all those reserves is set out in the tables in 2.7 of your packs on page 45 and also on Appendix 3. So you can have a look through the detail of that at your leisure. So in terms of all of our reserve balances then, so the movements from last year to this financial year, so on the general fund, we've already said we've had a movement of £225,000, so more money going into the general reserve and £10,000 coming out of earmarked reserve, so a net movement on reserves of £215,000. So the revenue provisions, so we hold some provisions for future liabilities, which we expect to arise at some point in the future. Business rates appeals retention regime places a liability on the council to refund taxpayers who successfully appeal against a rateable value, so we need to make sure we have provisions to be able to deal with those. So the business rates appeal provision has reduced, and it's now sitting at £609,000. Warranties and stocks, which is all around those final bit of liabilities for Gedling homes, which we just keep there in provision. At some point they will be able to come out, but they've remained static for a number of years. Housing benefit debts of 1.6 million. and other bad debts sitting at 687,000. So bad debt provisions, they're an estimate of the amount that we expect to remain uncollectible after a certain period of time, which may require write-off at some point in the future, and that's why we make sure that we have a provision for that. So an overall reduction in our bad debt provisions and revenue provisions of £464,000 from 23-24. So in terms of our efficiency programme, now this one is not such a good news one. So we started off the beginning of the year with an approved efficiency programme of £833,000. And that £833,000 includes an element of deferrals from previous years that have been carried forward. Actual delivery in year was £356,000. Deferrals into 24-25 of £410,000, and some of those will be, as I said, efficiencies that have been carried forward for a number of years, and efficiencies that have needed to have been removed of £67,000. So we've only actually achieved 42% of our agreed efficiencies in this year. So what are we going to do about it? Because, ensuring that we deliver these reserved is really critical to ensure that we do have a balanced budget. We have balanced them in year by other underspends, but going forward we need, and by use of the risk provision that we set aside specifically for this purpose. But we do need to deliver those efficiencies at some point in the future. So currently SLT are reviewing the efficiencies, the non-delivery, to assess whether actually some of these efficiencies that we may have agreed some years ago, are they actually still deliverable? A lot of them are around environment and staffing restructures and efficiencies for implementation of the waste system. And that's kind of like been a bit overridden now because we know now that we didn't have enough staff to deliver those services. So some of those efficiencies are a bit defunct. So we need to have a look at that, have a review of those, and have a look at realigning them, repurposing them, or reallocating them to other areas. So that's something that SLT is going to be looking at. What we started, we're going to be looking at in the next couple of months, and we'll be bringing further proposals to you regarding those the efficiencies and what we're going to do and how we're going to deliver them. So moving now on to capital. So we had an approved capital budget of 9.46 million and actual expenditure of just over £6 million. So a variance in year of 3.2 million. This doesn't represent savings, it's mainly slippage of projects. And reprofiling of the capital programme. It represents 34% of the budget. So some of the significant programmes that we need to reprofile include digital transformation. So, we've had the digital transformation was approved in July 2024. It's had a really, really good start, but obviously it's been operating for less than half a year, as at the end of the year. So some slippage was to be expected. Capacity is kind of like the key driver here. So we needed to have bums on seats to deliver the transformation programme. So there has been a recruitment drive. We do have bums on seats now, and the schemes are progressing really well. Some of the software systems and hardware wasn't purchased in 2024-25, but has been completed in 25-26. So we've got the CRM and white space kind of like coming forward and starting to be implemented. So a really good start with digital transformation. So although we have some slippage, we're really confident that that is going to catch up and keep momentum in 25-26. Temporary accommodation, so this is around our housing that we're purchasing for homeless people. So we've had programmes in for a couple of years now. We do have some underspends and slippage on that, mainly due to just some paperwork that we're waiting for a couple of houses that we're currently buying. So that budget will be spent throughout the year. So definitely there's no savings to be had there. Hillcrest Industrial Units, at the end of the year that scheme was outstanding. That is now completed. So going forward, that has been spent, and then also the vehicle replacement programme. Vehicle replacement programme, there's been some slippage on that. It does need reviewing. It's one of the things that we've got on our plan for the new year. We've had some new staff in, some new management in our fleet, and one of the tasks that they're going to be looking at is the vehicle replacement programme and whether it is kind of like, whether we've got the scheduling right in there. So that'll be coming forward in the new year. So all these schemes have been carried forward and will be spent in 24-25. So the full details of the capital programme can be seen in Appendix 5 on page 67 of your pack. Capital carry forwards are in Appendix 6 and the capital financing requirements are on Appendix 7. So if we go on to our capital financing, capital carry forward requests which can be authorised by me as Chief Finance Officer, total 1.95 million, and these are authorised under delegation. Capital carry forwards requiring approval, total 1.2 million, and they're set out in Appendix 6. Capital financing is set out in Appendix 7 for approval, and the recommendation here is that Cabinet recommend full council approve the capital financing. So just looking at that, we're funding our capital programme this year by £372,000 of capital receipts, so that's money that we've got from selling our assets. Capital grants and contributions of £3.6 million, so the vast majority of our capital programme is funded by capital grants and contributions. Just short of £300,000 from Section 106 and SIL, and £195,000 from revenue contributions, and then £1.5 million worth of borrowing is financing our capital programme. And that's it from me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Ooh, have a breath. Yeah, a lot of work there. And do we have any questions? Yeah, Linda?
Thank you, Leader. It wasn't a question, it was just a congratulations. And that made very, very good reading. I know the hard work that's gone in by yourself and the team. And you do, as Councillor McCrossan said, make it readable to those of us who struggle to balance our checkbooks, for want of a better expression. So thank you very much, and a really great piece of work by the teams.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo that because I found that much more understandable than all of the prudential borrowing information that really, honestly, was a bit much for me. But that was down to earth and let me know the position. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
I mean, just, Leader, thank you. Just to say that it's really pleasing to see that we're still supporting our vulnerable groups within the community, and particularly our care leavers who are very much in need of that support at times. So I'm really pleased that as a borough we still do that. So thank you.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of councils would like to be in this position. We'd like to be in one a bit better without the 3 million that we've got to find in some of the cuts, etc. But a lot of others where they've got significant difficulties, we're nowhere near that, and that's thanks to you, your team, and other officers along this top row. So I'll move the recommendation there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 recommendations. I'll move those from the chair. Seconded. We are agreed. Thank you. Let's put that to bed. Thank you very much. Moving on to, where's the next one? Conservation area. Joe, somewhere I can see it. It's like the lights aren't on, but it seems quite bright coming through these windows. Thank you.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from Cabinet to designate a new conservation area in Gedling Village. Appendix A comprises a map which shows the boundary of the conservation area, and Appendix B is the more detailed conservation area appraisal and management plan. There's a duty on local planning authorities to determine which parts of their areas are of special architectural or historic interest and to designate them accordingly. Gedling Village has a long history and is mentioned in the Domesday Book, and whilst originally a separate village, has over time become a suburb of Nottingham. The proposed boundaries of the conservation area include the core elements of the original village and include a number of listed buildings and non-designated heritage assets. Once adopted, the Gedling Village Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan would be an important material consideration when determining planning applications within the area, as well as forming an important part of the evidence base for planning decisions. The conservation area appraisal sets out a justification for the proposed designation and also the detailed boundaries. And it highlights a number of major key features that contribute to Gedling Village's distinctive architectural and historic interest. And just to run through these briefly, it includes the pattern of development relating to the historic core of Gedling Village from its medieval roots to the present day. The trees, curving roads and their relationship with open space, which gives the village a rural feel. The significant trees, walls and hedgerows within the conservation area boundary. The influence of the railway and the former Gedling Colliery, the prevalence of vernacular buildings, landmark buildings including All Hallows Church with its iconic spire, the former Gedling Station, Memorial Hall and the fountain, and the retention of historic architectural details. So in terms of taking the new conservation area forward, a public consultation exercise was held in February and March of this year, which included a drop-in public meeting at the Gedling Inn. Around 21 consultees responded to the consultation exercise and around 40 comments were made. Notably, Historic England were supportive of the proposed conservation area and commented that the boundaries appeared carefully considered. All of the comments received are summarised in Appendix C together with the Council's response. And just to draw out a couple of points, 2 minor boundary changes are now proposed as a result of the consultation. Firstly, to remove the top part of Blackburn Close, which is agreed it's not needed, and also to include the full historic curtilage of the former railway station. Whilst consultees did request that additional areas be included, we felt that the boundary has been drawn tightly around the original core of the village, and redrawing those boundaries more loosely might result in effectively a watering down of the proposed designation. A number of comments were received which queried the additional planning controls and burdens imposed as a result of the designation. It's worth stressing that the designation of a conservation area does not in itself prevent development. Whilst it's accepted that there would be additional controls, these are not felt to be considered unduly onerous and are justified to protect the historic and architectural interests of Gedling Village. So to conclude, the recommendations are that Cabinet approves the designation of a new conservation area in Gedling Village, authorises the Planning Policy Manager to notify the Secretary of State and Historic England of the designation and to advertise the conservation area as required by statute, and to publish the conservation area appraisal and management plan subject to any minor typographical amendments that might be required. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for that. You're making many people happy. I know Mr. Rodriguez, I saw him this morning, he'll be extremely pleased because we've got the railway included there. Jenny will be pleased. Does it mention the water fountain things you wanted in the village? That hopefully we'll find some money eventually to get that done. Past members of the Scouts, saw Gordon Tunnicliffe, who was a great stalwart for defending Gedling Village. There's lots and lots of people that have been involved there over many years. We'll be really pleased to see this, whether they're on the earth now or whether they're somewhere else, up or down. They'll be really pleased. Right, Linda, your turn.
I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Councillor Hollingsworth. Thank you for all the contributions from externally and internally and all the work you've done. We are genuinely cock-a-hoop, for want of a technical term. And I have spoken to people such as Gordon's wife, who are very, very pleased with the work that's been done. It's a fantastic and beautiful and historical village, and it's got some lovely features, and I'm very lucky to be accepted as a councillor there. And thank you to the planning policy team and everybody that's helped you. The report is amazing, the photographs are fabulous, one of which is mine, so thank you for that, no copyright. And I think you've done a great job, and thank you so much, and I support it wholeheartedly.
Thanks, Linda. Anybody else? No other comments? Okay, we'll move the recommendation. Thank you, Joe. Move it. Agreed. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next item, which is the Gedling Plan Q4 and year-end performance. That's Mike.
Thank you, Leader. This report sets out the performance data for the Council at the end of Q4, representing a period January to March 2025. It also covers the year-end performance for the whole of the 24-25 year. Starting with actions, there are 96 actions included in the Gedling plan for delivery during that year, 24-25, and at the year-end, 56 were completed, with the remaining 40 being carried forward into the current year, 25-26, as part of the Gedling plan, and those are for delivery. I'm pleased to report good progress is being made on these. It's a higher number than I wanted to see, but we've already had 3 months of this year, and a lot of them are being completed as we speak. So good progress is being made, and further information is provided in the appendix to the report. In terms of Q4 and year-end performance indicators, there are 30, of which 11 were either on or above target, 3 were slightly below target, and again, disappointingly, 8 missed the target. We also had 8 indicators that were for data tracking purposes only. The table in paragraph 2.4 shows examples of particularly positive performance, and I just want to pick out 3 of these. Firstly, as always, the number of visits to leisure centres, where it continues to exceed expectations. And again, we've achieved an annual figure of over 1 million, 1.3 million visitors this year, against a target of just short of 1.2 million, so well done to the team. The number of affordable homes delivered, where we have achieved a figure of 105 this year, against a target of 75. And really pleased to see the percentage of major planning applications processed within 13 weeks, where we've achieved a maximum, 100% for the year, which is, again, fantastic news. The reasons for the 8 indicators that have missed the target are set out in paragraph 2.5. Again, they're all relatively close to the target. Most of them have just missed it slightly. There are only 2 exceptions to this, both in relation to benefits. So firstly, the processing of new benefit claims with an annual performance of 20.3 days against a target of 15 days. I must apologise here to members, the figure in the report in the table is actually wrong. It says 5 and 7.7, that is incorrect for new benefit. The correct figures are shown in the appendix at page 271. So just to repeat, the annual performance for processing of new benefit claims is 20.3 days against a target of 15 days. The actual figures for benefit change in circumstances is correct in the table, with an annual performance of 7.7 days against a target of 5 days. Paragraph 2.6 provides a summary of the position regarding compliments and complaints, and these continue to be reviewed positively and regularly by the senior leadership team. In terms of achievements in Q4, you're normally going to say there's an appendix missing because we normally report these in this report. However, because we've separated the annual report this time, normally it gets brought together. The annual report is coming to this committee in July. We will bring the achievements attached to that report next time around. So just to end, Leader, as always, I'd like to place on record my thanks to all staff for continuing to deliver high quality services for the council. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And I think we can pass that all on. David.
Thanks, Leader. I just want to pick out 3 examples in table 2.4. The number of affordable houses that the Chief Executive already mentioned, but also the remediation of rented households and the number of long-term empty homes brought back into use, all very creditable performance. Thank you.
Certainly right there, David. It proves that licensing we did, which seemed controversial, has paid off. And some people have probably, you never even know on that, whether you might have saved a life, particularly if it's electrical or gas, and you look at the recent explosions in workshop, etc. It's all the damage that can be done there, and we've possibly there, invisibly, assisted somebody from being, not being injured. Right, we've got the recommendations there for no more comments. I'll move those. We all agreed? Thank you very much. Thank you. And then we're on to, where's the last one? Fran. Gedling planned performance indicators.
Thank you, Leader. Members will recall that the annual delivery plan for 25-26 was approved by Cabinet on the 13th of February and Council on the 5th of March. That sets out the Council's strategic direction for the next year, and progress against the actions under the annual delivery plan will be reported quarterly through Cabinet. Sitting beneath those specific annual delivery plan actions, this report seeks approval of a number of key performance indicators for 25-26 to be reported at strategic level as part of quarterly monitoring. Underneath these strategic targets, there will be a range of departmental key performance indicators which will be measured within individual departments but not reported at a strategic level. For 25-26, there has been a review of those strategic key performance indicators, a review undertaken through our Budget and Performance Board and senior leadership team. As a result of that review, there has been a change to the performance indicators proposed to be reported at a strategic level. A number of new performance indicators have been proposed for 25-26. In particular, new indicators have been added in relation to our bin collection rate, or our strike rate, as it's known, street cleansing sampling, and more targeted output on customer interactions. In addition, there have been new performance indicators added in relation to economic development, in particular around employment rates and engagement activities undertaken by this council. There has been a deletion or removal of some key performance indicators at a strategic level. As I say, that doesn't mean they have disappeared in their entirety, and they are being tracked within departmental performance indicators. Most specifically, the three that have been removed are outlined at paragraph 2.3. That's the number of nights spent in B&B at the end of the month. That data is recorded in KPIs in another way. So it's not that Cabinet are not getting information in relation to B&B, it's just a slightly different statistic. The number of littering and dog fouling fixed penalty notices issued, and the level of all crime across Gedling Borough per 1,000 population. Some targets have been reviewed and target levels changed, particularly where there has been overperformance or underperformance in relation to different indicators. So the three are detailed in paragraph 2.4. So the targets have changed in relation to the number of visits to leisure centres, the number of people on the swim scheme, and the number of DNA members. And this is largely because we continue to exceed those targets in the previous year. In relation to the performance indicator for net additional homes provided, that's KPI NI 154, an increased target is proposed in relation to that performance indicator, which aligns with the housing target for the borough informed by the standard method published in December 2024. Now, within your report at paragraph 2.5 and within the appendix, it gives the figure 609. The actual figure that will be that sets the target is 631 dwellings per annum. So that was a typo within the report. So the actual figure is 631 dwellings. Finally, there's a slight change to the proposed performance indicator in relation to the number of empty homes being returned to use following the council intervention. Historically, this was reported on a 6-month basis. We're extending that, so it's the number of properties that have been empty for 12 months or longer, because this more accurately reflects other measures, for example, the council tax empty homes levy, and shows how that may be impacting on that key performance indicator. So the full list of indicators is attached at Appendix 1, and the ask is that those are approved for 25-26. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Fran. Any comments? David?
I just wanted to pick up the indicators that have been deleted in paragraph 2.3, and just to confirm the one level of all crime across Gedling Borough. I have a monthly portfolio meeting that the local police inspector attends, and she always produces a detailed breakdown, which is more than just all crime. It's a breakdown of the different sorts of crime. So that is still monitored regularly. And of course, the all crime information is available from the Notts Police website anyway.
You? Anybody else? Marge?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to that my thanks to the police that they've now re-established regular meetings at ward level, or in their terms, their ward areas, which are slightly different to ours. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. No one else? So there's no one else. We'll move that recommendation. We approve the performance indicators. Are we agreed? We are agreed. Thank you. Final item, which is the modern day slavery and human trafficking. Mike.
Thank you, Leader. This report seeks approval for the Council's modern slavery and human trafficking statement for the previous year, being 2024-25. The background section of the report sets out the 4 categories that come under the umbrella of modern slavery, these being slavery itself, servitude, forced work and human trafficking, and these are further defined in paragraph 1.1. The background also sets out the different types of exploitation that victims of modern slavery may be subjected to. And these are not pleasant to read, but sexual exploitation, labour exploitation, forced criminality, organ harvesting, shocking that one, and domestic servitude. Again, further explanation of these is provided in the report at paragraph 1.2. In the UK, during the calendar year 2024, 19,125 potential victims of modern slavery were referred to the Home Office via the National Referral Mechanism, and this is commonly known as the NRM. This goes up every year, and this represented a 13% increase on the 2023 figures, and it is the highest recorded since records began. Just shows the sad state of affairs we're all living in at the moment. Unfortunately, despite best efforts both nationally and internationally, it appears that modern slavery is here to stay in society. And as more resources are put into identifying modern slavery, then unfortunately more cases will be found each year. Nottingham City Council operate a slavery exploitation team, commonly known as SET, and this team has been commissioned by Gedling for many years now, but last year it was widened to include all the districts and boroughs across Nottinghamshire, and that's to deal with all referrals at a county-wide level. During the calendar year 2024, the slavery exploitation team recorded 395 modern slavery referrals in Nottinghamshire alone. Significant number, 395. And there were 13 on their own patch. Doesn't sound many, but 13 is too many. And there were 13 identified within Gedling Borough. The legislation that currently applies is the Modern Slavery Act 2015, which introduced a number of measures as set out in paragraph 1.5. This 2015 Act also sets out 3 specific duties that apply to local authorities such as Gedling. These are a duty to identify and refer modern slavery child victims and consenting adults, again consenting is a key word here, through the NRM. A duty to notify the Home Secretary of adults who do not consent to enter the NRM, so we still have to be aware of them and report them where possible. And the duty to cooperate with the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. There's also another angle to this. Local authorities also have a responsibility to understand their supply chains and the risk of modern slavery in terms of identification and referral of victims, supporting victims, providing community safety services and disrupting any identified modern slavery activities, and as practically as possible ensure that procurement supply chains that the Council uses are free from modern slavery. Members will be aware we put a lot of effort into renewing our procurement activity and strengthened it significantly this year, and again that will only have a positive effect on our operations with our partners, clients, supply chains. If members remember, we also this time last year approved a refreshed modern slavery and human trafficking policy, and that was for 2024 to 2027. So just to flag that, Leader, that is also in place at this council. So attached to the report is Appendix 1. This is known as a statement, and this sets out how Gedling Borough Council delivers training to its staff, how it undertakes targeted activity, and how it monitors the effectiveness of those measures in place. And of course, we can always do more. We do well, but we can always do more. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Mike. David?
Thanks, Leader, and thanks to Chief Executive for the report. It's interesting, the data, because where's that data? Is that data reported to anybody, or can we have it in a bit more detail? You mentioned 395 modern slavery offences in the county and 13 in Gedling. It would be interesting to have a bit more of a breakdown of that. And I appreciate it might be confidential. You might just have to share it to the Cabinet. And the second question as part of that is, of the 13, can we have a bit more detail on the contribution that that the borough made to those, and things like the supply chain, were any identified through our business activities as opposed to our public protection activities. Thank you.
Okay.
If I can respond, Leader, yes, absolutely, yes. So the data on the Nottinghamshire figures come from the slavery exploitation team. Obviously, they retract any confidential information, so it's quite a bland report, but I can certainly share that with members of the Cabinet. In terms of the NRM figures, they are on the website, on the NRM National Modern Slavery website, but so I do pick those up, but they are reported quarterly as well. So again, if members would like a briefing, I'm happy to do that, Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think it's important, David, what you brought up, because the people need to know about it, and where we can disclose those figures when we've got a new website, which is apparently being done at the moment, so we can get some information and remind people and tip people off what actually is going off in your community. Because I got involved with this many years ago. Do you remember the cockle pickers up in Morecambe? And worked with some of the police and worked with some people at Scotland Yard and the Home Office, which came out, and it was a Nottinghamshire Deputy Chief Constable that got involved, and then was the national lead. Unfortunately, he died, but John Robinson was involved. Mike's carrying the flag now there, and I think it's very important people are reminded, because I know we saw one of the cases this week where there was a young woman who died, and she was just a slave, and she was just literally a slave. And also with the ongoing things of organised crime, which we should smash wherever we can, those people threatening people back in other countries, etc. So I think if at some point we can release some of that information, it might wake a few people up with some indicators as to how to spot it. And you'll see it in the well-off areas as well. It's not just people who wash your car or something like that. It's all types of people to be tied into this. Viv?
I mean, absolutely, it's shocking. I just wondered, is there a whistleblowing sort of line that people can ring that remains anonymous if they spot anything they're concerned about in the community? Is there a way of the public responding to it?
Certainly, there's Crime Stoppers. I don't think you can refer direct to the NRM, can you, unless you're an organisation?
Leader, we can refer to the slavery exploitation team at the city. Our community protection team have links into that. There's the, I always forget what it's called, National Gangmasters Association or things like that. So there's a lot of things. But first stage, Kevin and his team are absolutely happy to take a referral and progress that through. Yes. Yes, the Crime Stoppers is anonymously, so that's a good point as well. But there's a lot of options.
Okay, so we're asked to approve the modern slavery human trafficking statement 24-25. Do you want to add anything to that, in the fact that we make more publicity where it's possible? Can we just add a second bit to that?
Yes, Leader.
Yeah, if we can do that and try and make the public aware, and you don't have to get involved, but there are numbers there to ring, and there are people which might make and save someone's life. So with moving that, are we all agreed? We are all agreed. Thank you very much. Coming to the final bit, which is any other items the Chair considers urgent. I'm going to press Henry here. Calverton swimming pool, just give us a bit so we get the true facts. I mean, I went across to the shop earlier and somebody said to me, oh, you're stopping 2 hours free parking then in Arnold. And am I? So, no. So just put some of the myths that's being floated around Calverton.
Thank you, Chair. I think it needs to be said that Calverton is a joint use agreement. So we don't actually own the building. It's not our building. We're reliant on Nottinghamshire County Council and the school. And one of the reasons the swimming pool was closed in Calverton this week and is still having problems is because we're reliant on 2 boilers, which are both in the school, on the school site. One of those boilers was put in 2002. The other boiler is way older than that, 1993. And the older boiler broke down 2 months ago. The newer boiler, which was 2002, broke down at the weekend. And this goes to show that we have the assets inside these buildings, but we're not responsible for the maintenance. And that creates all sorts of problems for us. And it also needs to be said that Calverton is over 50 years old and it is going to have problems with maintenance issues. The fact that we're reliant on the school and the fact that we're reliant on Nottinghamshire County Council, and both of those drug their feet a lot of the time in terms of ensuring that these buildings are brought up to scratch, particularly with things at Red Hill, for example. We've had issues with a leaky roof. Again, Red Hill, Leisure Centre, it's not a building we own. Carlton Forum, it's not a building we own. We've got lots of issues with the sewers at Carlton Forum, sewers that aren't fit for purpose, sewers that are causing problems with blockages, sewers that are causing problems with the toilets, and that's because that building itself is over 55 years old, which is why we need a new asset in Carlton. One that we own outright, one that we can be responsible for, one that we can maintain. Again, Carlton Forum, reliant on the school and Nottinghamshire County Council for maintenance issues, creates a lot of problems for us. And in terms of free parking's here to stay. This council has never ever said that free parking is going to go away. It's not. Free parking is here to stay. The Tories, many years ago, which is one of the reasons we got elected in 2011, were going to bring in charges for parking, and that caused all sorts of problems. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Anybody else? No one? We'll formally close the meeting. Thank you.